When it comes to holidays, Juneteenth wasn't widely known outside of Texas until fairly recently. It became a state holiday in 1980, a federal holiday in 2021. On that day in 1865, Major General Gordon Ranger ordered the final enforcement of the Emancipation Proclamation in Texas. It had been issued by President Lincoln 2 years before. It changed the legal status of enslaved African Americans to free. As we know, change did not come easily or quickly. KHOU 11 news anchors Mia Gradney and Lynn Cannon have presented a series of documentaries addressing different angles of the African American experience post-slavery, from education to economics, music to culture. This year, the focus is family.
Before the start of the transatlantic slave trade, most West Africans were affiliated with tribes and lived in small villages. Identity wasn't shaped by borders or nation, but mostly by kinship.
Our definition of family, I think, is a broader definition. We know the difference between a biological family and our kinfolks. Our kinfolks, we might have grown up on the same block with them, and we called them our cousin. That's my play brother, my play sister. That's my little cousin.
It's very much part of African American culture.
I think so, and I think it points back to customs that preceded our life on this continent.
KHOU 11 news anchor Lynn Cannon joins us to share more. Good morning.
Good morning, Deborah.
Yeah, we're usually ships passing in the night because you are on the night side, I'm the day side.
Yes.
Right? All right. Mia Gradney, who is, this is part of her idea too, of how this came about, and your co-anchor, grew up in Houston, but she didn't learn about Black history in school, didn't talk about it at home, and she found out about it, you know, when she attended a Black rodeo once.
Yes.
You grew up north, and so it just wasn't really part of your background.
Was
either,
not.
right?
I just want to point out that you heard Mia's voice there.
Yeah.
Today she has no voice.
Yeah.
That's why she's not here.
right. She just wanted to sleep in. I got you. I understand. No. I know she almost lost her voice last night on the air. Right?
Yes,
yeah.
she did.
Yeah.
So anyway, this was every year. Mia is the creative force and has the vision for this show, this documentary. And this year she was inspired by pictures that she has at home that date back to 1892 with her great-grandfather. And she thought, you know, we should delve into this, kinfolk and family. There's some of her family photos.
Yeah.
So that was her idea.
Yeah.
So we were off and running.
Yeah.
Mia gets an idea, we're off and running. But back to your thought about me and
Juneteenth.
Juneteenth.
Yeah.
So I had no clue. Then I moved to Seattle to work at a TV station. There were a lot of Texans there. Yeah. And they said, we're having a Juneteenth celebration. I said, what's that?
Yeah. I've been missing out on a celebration.
I was 30 years old. I had no clue.
Yeah. You know, and my mom grew up in East Texas on a farm in a segregated school, and she thought that we were getting a Juneteenth education because, you know, she did. And so I learned about it through her. And there she is right there to the far right on the screen with her brother and her cousin. Yeah, on the screen in Linden, Texas in Cass County. But she assumed I was getting it. And when she realized that I wasn't, she sat me down and gave me some of her old books that she had.
Good for her.
And so we read through that. Yeah. And you know, it's funny when people say, oh, things like slavery was not that long ago, or they say it was so long ago. It was not that long ago. My dad's grandparents were sold, a family of 8, for $100 a piece into slavery. And so that kind
Your
of
great-grandparents.
Yeah, so which it trickles, I'm glad I need a flow chart, but yeah, and that trickles down into what you were talking about when you talk about family. You've had a number of award-winning series on Juneteenth. The first one was Reconstruction, Civil Rights Movement and Present Day. You had The Pursuit of Economic Equality, Freedom to Learn about Education, and A Legacy of Song. But to this point now, as you mentioned, it's about family and kinfolk.
Yes.
All right. And that's so important. As I mentioned, East Texas was my family. And if you start delving into your family tree, you find all kinds of interesting things. Mia and I had this conversation. She goes, I didn't realize how much we crossed with a white family. And I found that out not too long ago as well. So in East Texas, as in many towns, there's the first freed slave or she came here as a slave in my family. And then as we started going through the tree, we had, you know, the first freed families that started their families.
Love these pictures.
Yeah, and then their farm was adjacent to another family and that they were related to, and then one of their kinfolk, if you will, left land to both sides, the black family and the white family, and so the other group comes up here in that next picture. So there you go. And so the interesting thing is I did my ancestry DNA.
Those are your relatives.
Those are relatives. And having done my ancestry DNA, I'm getting a lot of those hits where it's like, hi, Miss Duncan, I'm your third cousin. It's the entire white side of the family. So as much as we deal with racism in this country, people need to stop and step back and
check
realize.
The DNA.
Yeah, check the DNA, because we are all more related than you think. Another thing that you've done, which you'll see in this special that you have, is oral history while you have the time.
Yes, I think it's very important. So my mother passed away in 2022, but years before that, I sat down and interviewed her for about an hour. She was big into history. She was big into family history. So I sat her down to ask her about her family, what she can remember about her her parents, her grandparents, her great-grandparents. Where did they come from? So I grew up in Ohio. So what's the connection here? The connection is they were part of the Great Migration from the South. They came from Alabama and Georgia, and they migrated for better jobs in Ohio. And she explains, those are my grandparents right there. She explains why they came, why my great-grandfather how he wound up in Ohio in this small town. Somebody told him, hey, this is a good spot. And so it's good to have it recorded, because you have these family conversations and you hear stuff over the years, but if it's not recorded, people forget. They kind of like years later.
Or if you hear hearsay later, it's like, this is coming from the proverbial horse's mouth, right?
Your parents are gone. You're talking to your siblings or aunts and uncles. I don't remember, child. So if you can get,
oftentimes people that memory starts to fade.
It starts to fade.
Yeah, I remember I did this with my dad. We sat down with him and I talked about, he was born and raised on a farm in Oklahoma, but he ended up traveling the world. We ended up traveling with him, obviously, when he went into the military, but he went in before the Air Force was the Air Force. It was the Army Air Corps.
Okay.
And he said, because, as we know, desegregation happened sooner in federal agencies, and so he's like, it was a chance to get off the farm and have a job. And so he explained what that was like going into the United States military, because discrimination was still there, but he said it was the best opportunity that he had at that time as a young black man coming off of the cotton farm.
So two things here. One, you just mentioned it. You interviewed your parents. I also have an interview with my dad. I didn't use it here, but if you can get with your oldest family member, sit them down. It's very easy. You can put an iPhone on a tripod,
right,
and shoot, because the quality is very good. And hold on, even if you don't do anything with it for a long time, but you have it. You have it you have the conversation. So then you have the information when and if you need it, and then you can pass it on to other people.
And then sharing it with your parents. My dad always thought that his dad was an alcoholic. I said, why'd you think that? He goes, he was just kind of nothing but an alcoholic. He goes, well, I saw him taking a drink once. And when he saw him taking a drink, it was probably during Prohibition or something, but that was his, and my dad's dad passed away at an early age, my dad. And so I said, Dad, I just did the genealogy on here. I'm hearing all these things people said about your dad. He was an ironsmith, and they said in there that they wouldn't take their things to anybody but him because he was the best ironsmith around. And my dad looked at me and he cried. He's like, really? I said, yeah. So whatever you thought about your dad, because he passed away, you were so young, you had limited memories, this is what other people, and it's documented.
So, we've been looking at these black and white photographs, and I think it's important to get the oral history, because then you get the story behind the photographs.
Right.
What's the real story? And then you have it as part of kinfolk and family history that you can share. Now, you might have kids. My daughter is a teenager. Yours is barely a teen.
He's 21.
He's now. Is he 21?
He
where did that
bought
happen?
me a drink the other day.
What?
No, he said he was going to. He said, Mom, you look stressed. I'm going to buy you a drink.
But the point
and then ask me
is,
for my credit card. Anyway, okay. Kinfolk.
Anyway, so I can't believe he's 21. My daughter's 17. So, your son, they might not be interested now, but when they're 30, when they're 40, when they do have an interest, I have this oral history that I can go back and listen to and get an understanding.
Yeah. Where did I come from?
I encourage you to do it.
And I love these documentaries you all do, because it's not where I came from yesterday. It's centuries ago. And so you talk about the African village and what it was before, but once they crossed the ocean and came into slavery, everything was turned upside down.
So I think Mia's done a really good job of this with each documentary every year, even though it's Juneteenth, which was 1865 in Galveston. she always likes to go back and explore, okay, what happened prior to slavery? So in this case, for family, what was the family like in Africa? As you take a look at this, it was village life, you know, it was kinfolk, it was tribes.
Yeah.
And so you get that understanding before we move on to Juneteenth, post-slavery.
Right.
And so it's great to understand it from the even prior to Juneteenth. And so we've done a good job of capturing that, and we'll do it again this time.
Yeah, and of course, after emancipation, then you talk about, let's just define those two words, kinfolk versus family. And sometimes it feels like it's the same.
They're relatives, but not relatives.
Yeah, right.
They're not blood, but they.
And oftentimes you saw that happen when it just the way it worked with everybody, not just African Americans, but if a child's parents died, somebody else said, "Here, we'll scoop them up, we'll take them," and so you were not related by blood, but you were related by title.
Yeah.
You know, so what do you want people to get out of this particular documentary?
I think,
and everybody, not
because
just
of
African Americans,
the arc of the story.
Yeah.
It is a uniquely American story, and we proudly display this every year. And to understand the arc of what happened, that families were torn apart, and then they built and came back together. And so you have this incredible legacy that has built up in spite of the past history, and we should all be
and parts
proud
of
of
it
that.
are in you. Sometimes you don't even realize it.
Absolutely.
All right. You have some quick start guides to help people to research their own history.
Yeah, so, you know, I would recommend, you know, reach out to genealogy. Start a family tree. Do the oral history sooner rather than later.
Right.
Why folks, you know, still have memory. And you can also, you know, we do genealogy, do DNA.
Yeah.
You know, I know through DNA, through a company that used to be owned by a Houston guy, but it's based here.
Family tree, I think, yeah.
Yeah, I know that my family from Africa, they came from Benin on one side of the family and Angola on the other.
Right.
So you can do that. You can ask them, say, hey, what part of Africa did my, and so they will take a swab, usually from the father on one side and the male on one side and male on the other.
So many moving parts here because like my last name's not really Duncan, right? When you go back far enough.
Yeah.
A lot of African Americans have the last name of the slave owner of the plantation. So there's going to be a name jump that you do there, but there's like really good records right now. They've released a whole group of the next ones. So it's really interesting. Like Dale Lockett is our program director and community director here at Channel 11, and he grew up in East Texas, right, Dale? Lockett, guess who's in my family tree?
A Lockett?
Lockett.
Are y'all cousins?
You and I might be cousins, Dale. Okay, but anyway, you never know what you're going to find when you start doing that. But Lynn, thank you very much.
Oh, it's always a pleasure.
All right, now go take a nap. All right, the new KHOU 11 full-length documentary special, Juneteenth 1865 to 2025, Kinfolk and Family, will stream this month on KHOU 11 Plus on your smart TV, Roku, or Fire Stick. For details, visit khou.com.